Everyone, I'm Vanessa from Fabric Confetti, and today I'm going to show you how to embroider the top bar in my popular Adventure Awaits quilt. It is multi-hooped. There will be 6 hoopings, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So let's get going. Here is the top bar of the quilt. This is the right-hand side. The entire quilt does not fit under the camera. With this embroidery, we're going to start on the right-hand side and we're going to work to the left. Hooping 1, hooping 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Here is my fabric. I have the blue on the top for the sky and the green on the bottom for the grass. You have instructions in your pattern. I advise you to print all of them out. I hole punch mine and keep them in a binder. This top bar is 8 by 52. The bottom bar is 2 by 52. I've already stitched them together. I've already put the Shapeflex 101 on the back. I've ironed it on. That gives more stability to your fabric when you are embroidering. Now the instructions are all here. It tells you all what I just talked about at the top. Then it's got a picture of the different hoopings. We are going to start marking up this piece of fabric. We're going to draw a line 1.5 inches from the right, and then we've got different markings as we go. Now those will be used when we do the hoopings. The first mark that we are going to make, it will be a vertical line, will be 1.5 inches from the right-hand side. So I'm going to put this here. I use these water-soluble blue markers. I love them. I just spritz them off at the end. So that is 1.5. And I'll even write on there. That's 1.5. You read your instructions. The next one is 10.25 from that one. So there's 10.25. I'm going to use this line to make sure that everything's straight. That's the edge of the grass. I'm going to put a line there. And I can put 10.25, and I can put hooping 1. Okay, you really can't see that, but I just wrote on here with my blue marker, so I know. So I can move this to the side. The next line I need to draw is 8 inches from this line. So I'll put my ruler here, 8 inches. So it's lined up with that, it's lined up with the grass. Put a line here. But this is 8 inches. 8 inches. The next line will be 8.5 inches from that line. This here. 8.5 is on this line. Okay. The next one is 9 inches. The next one is 6 inches. And the last is 6 3/4. So 6 3/4. This will all make sense when we finally begin our embroidery. Okay. I've given you a picture of what it will like. This is not to scale, but this will be hooping 1. So you've got 3 mountains, 2 trees, and 2 clouds. And then if you turn to page 8 in your instructions, this is the stitch out for hooping 1. And you can use a 200 by 300 hoop, which is an 8 by 12, or you can use a mega hoop or a jumbo hoop from the Bernina. When I bring the design up on my embroidery machine, this is the way that it is going to be situated. Clouds will be to the left, where the hoop attaches to my machine, and the trees and all will be to the right. This will be how it situates on your fabric. So that will be how you put your fabric into, on top of the hoop. But I'm going to show you my special method of lining things up. Okay, I brought up the design, and the first thing that we're going to stitch out is a placement box. If this basting stitch is too wide and your machine, your stabilizer does not catch it, 2 things. You can use the dots that it will, the puncture dots that it will definitely stitch out. Or you can put another little piece of stabilizer underneath to get it started, and that usually works. First of all, I didn't tell you, I use about a 1.8 ounce tearaway. This is a crisp and tear as opposed to a soft and tear, so it really perforates well when you tear it away off the back. So that is what I'm using here. I actually use Exquisite, which is made by Dime, but OESD makes a great stabilizer. There's lots of good stabilizers out there. I just use this because I can buy it in 50-yard rolls. I also use a wool mat. This is crucial for the way that I line things up. So I've stitched out the placement line. I put it on my wool mat, and now here is my fabric. Okay. If we look at the design in the hoop, my fabric has to go like this. The grass will be at the bottom because the clouds will be up at the top. And we're going to use the line that you drew here and the grass line and this line that you drew up here to line this up. So I'm going to use pins, and the reason I use a wool mat is we're going to first start with this. So we're going to put a pin right there where the grass meets the line, and we're going to go right here. We're going to put a pin right down straight into that. Okay, that goes right. See, the wool mat holds it. That's perfect. We're going to come over a little bit. We're going to put the pin in that line, and we're going to look underneath. I'm a little too far. We're going to look underneath, and I'm going to put the pin straight down into that basting stitch there. All right, I need to come down here, and I need to do the same thing where the other line meets the grass. So I put a pin in here, and then I look underneath, and there is I'll put it right in where the 2 lines meet, or the corner of the basting box. That's it. So that's the bottom right hand corner. That's perfect. I can come up here a little bit, look underneath, That was a little too far. Look underneath and go right into the basting box. And I think I'm going to put yet a fifth pin because I really want this to be on the line right here where the grass is. Okay, none of those pins are pulling, okay, and that's what I want. They're going straight down into the mat. Now I'm going to use a little 505 and I'm going to spray a little here. You don't need tons of it. And I'm going to lift this up and I'm going to spray a little over here. And I'm going to lift this up here. And I'm going to spray a little at the bottom. Now, if you are somebody who just does not like 505, I get it. I sometimes use these pins. These pins are the best. The long flower pins, because you really can get in here and lift it up, and you've got a longer pin in order to pin the fabric. So I would highly suggest, if you do not want to use 505, to use the flower pins. Okay, everything is down. I am going to lift these pins out because I've already used the 505. Could probably put a little bit of spray up here. Now, the next line I'm going to draw out, which is on the instructions, is a basting line. And that basting line should just go right on top of where the seam that you have between the sky and the grass. If for whatever reason it's really off, I mean, a little bit is not going to be the end of the world. But if it is really off, then you're better off just stopping, taking a seam ripper, take out the line, and then coming back and lining up your fabric. You'll just get a nicer product if everything is as square and straight as you can possibly get it. I have a green thread in. That's what I used right from the beginning. This will be covered up by the satin stitch from your mountains, but this is what we're going to be using to do the basting stitch. That looks pretty good. As you can see, that basting line is really perfect. It's really right on there. So that's going to be perfect. Everything is lined up. So the next step is what we're going to do is we're going to take it back to the machine and we're going to stitch out the placement line for the clouds and the first mountain. This particular hooping is the first hooping. I'm going to show you all the stitching. When we get to the other hoopings and things are the same, it's just I will show you how to line everything up, but then I won't necessarily show you all the embroidery steps. So there it is. That's a placement line for the mountain. I've done it in white because the clouds are going to be white. And if I did it in a dark color, then I would be afraid that the dark color would show underneath the white. It probably wouldn't, but that's just me. This quilt is really all about lining things up because this particular hooping is only 19 minutes of stitching. Let's take it over to the cutting table and take a look. Now, I use pre-cut pieces. I use a scan and cut which is an electronic cutter, to cut out my pieces. I use SVG files. If you do not want to use a scan and cut, I actually have a whole video on how to do the cutaway method with my patterns. We work with it. The stitching, so the satin stitch will be 20% on the outside, 80% on the inside. So what you need to do, and this is all in the video, is you may have to make sure you cut really, really close to the piece, even if you go through the stitching line a little bit. That's not going to be a problem, okay? Because you're going to be covering that placement line with a satin stitch. So that's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to iron this down. It fits right into that shape, like a puzzle piece. And I use one of these little steam irons. It's not hot at all, which means I didn't turn it on. Okay. So let's let that heat up. I'll move these over here. There we go. Now that's hot enough. Okay, those are right placed in the placement lines. Now we're going to take the back over to the machine and I will do the embroidery. So as you can see, we've stitched out the embroidery around the two clouds and the first mountain. Next, we're going to do a placement stitch for mountain number 2. I'm going to just keep the same brown in there. So now we're going to to iron down the applique for the second mountain, peeling off the back. That fits right in there like that. The iron is very hot now. And I'm pretty careful not to go on top of the other. I use a press cloth, so you just don't want to flatten the other embroidery thread. So that's ready. I'm going to take this back over to the machine and stitch out the embroidery around this mountain. Now with this one, I've done a few texture lines in the mountains. You'll see this throughout the stitching. So what we'll do is do all the texture lines, and then it will go all the way around the mountain. I made this color another step, so you could use two colors if you would like to. I'm going to use the same color. This is why it was also important to get this line as close to the grass as possible, or right on the grass, because this satin stitch is going to be right there on the grass. It's going to meet it perfectly. Okay, now it is going to stitch out the placement line for the third mountain. Okay, all of this is just layering. So the third mountain will go over the first two. So here's the placement line for the third mountain. We're going to put our piece in here. Fits nicely. We're going to hit it with the iron. I don't have my clapper over here, but if you're having a problem with your applique not laying down, the whole idea is to cool it as quickly as possible. So if you hit it with an iron, you see I don't spend a lot of time with it, and you hit it with a clapper, I'll get that out for the second hooping. That makes a big difference. It cools it down and it sticks beautifully. Okay, back over to the machine, and we're going to stitch out this embroidery, and we'll stitch out the placement stitch for the two trees. Okay, we can see we've stitched out the embroidery around this third mountain. We did the trunks of the trees. We've done the placement line for the trees. And now we're going to iron the trees down and then go back and do the embroidery for the trees. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these steps for every single one of these hoopings, but I am going to show you how to do each hooping. So let's finish this one. Then we'll take this out of the hoop. We'll tear away the extra tearaway on the back, and we'll bring up the second hooping, and I'll show you how to line that up. So hooping one is finished. We're going to take it out of the hoop. Put this over this side. And I'm going to tear away the extra stable. See, this is called crisp and tear because it literally perforates. Okay, let's see. I have a little thread here. Oh, that's what it is. I've got my pin there, and I have a thread here, so we'll just clip that. Throw that away. I don't kill myself. That's how I am about taking all the extra stabilizer in. I pull it out of the clouds. I use tweezers to do that. And that's again why I like this stabilizer. Okay, so that is hooping one. Let me zoom out. So that's hooping one. Now, if we go to our instructions again, this is going to be hooping two. So we're going to move hooping one over a little bit. And this is going to be hooping 2. So you see this mountain will cover this. And then this will also have 2 trees and 1 cloud. So we are going to put more stabilizer in our hoop. And then again, this is going to be clouds up, trees down when we put in the placement lines. So you see I have stitched out my placement box, and this is how it's going to line up in your hoop. Okay, come from your hoop. I brought up the design. Sometimes I can't say I've never done it. I see cloud here, I write over here cloud. I write trees here, just so that I know that I get everything lined up correctly. So let's take this. This is hooping 1. I'm going to move it up. We're going to use this line, which was the line we drew that was 10¼ inches from the first line, to line up this box. We're going to put 1 pin in here, right where those 2 meet. I'm going to come in. So I put a pin in. It's going to go right here in the top right-hand corner of that box. We're going to go straight down into the wool. I'm going to take another pin. We're going to come over a little bit on that line. We're going to look underneath, and that is actually spot on. We're going to put another pin in there. We're going to come down here about halfway on the grass. We're going to look underneath, and we're going to put the pin right in that line. I'm going to zoom out. We're going to come right to the end. There's a line right here. We're going to put the pin right where that joins the grass, and that's that bottom right corner. We'll put a pin straight down into the wool. Take another pin. We're going to come up here just a little bit. You could just see it. I'll move it just like there you go. About 2 inches up. We're going to look underneath, and that's spot on. Okay, I'm going to use I'm finding my Shapeflex is coming up a little bit. So I'm going to hit this with an iron. So I'd hear that a little bit better. All right, now I'm going to hit it with my 505. I'll lift this up and do the bottom. You don't have to soak it. A little hit will be fine. And I don't do anything with rush. You're better off just doing a little at a time, patting it down. You can do the top now. Patting it down. Everything's good. Okay, none of the pins are pulling. They're all straight in. I hit it with the 505. I'm going to pull the pins out. Now I'm going to take it back, and I will show you this next step. I'm going to stitch out the basting line, and hopefully it goes right along there. Again, if it doesn't, I could pull it out and realign everything. You could see that basting line is right along the grass, so everything is lined up. I'm going to go ahead now and do all the embroidery for hooping 2. When I finish, I will show you how to take it out again, and we'll line up hooping 3. I'm going to just show you because I got my clappers. I've got 2, one from Riley Blake and one from the Gypsy Quilter. One's bigger than the other. So I position my piece, my cloud. I'm going to put it down and then I just hit it with a clapper. That cools it instantly. And that works really well if you've got fusible and for whatever reason it's not sticking. Put this one down, hit it with the iron, and then hit it with a clapper. So I just wanted to show you that. Now we have finished hooping 2. Looks good. So we can either do this, we can take it out of the hoop, or we can just, again, because I use that crispin tear, we can just pull it right out of the hoop. Okay. I'm going to have to re-hoop some stabilizer. And then our next hooping, look here, we'll go, let's see, what do we have? We'll go between this line and this line. Oops, I moved this up a little bit more. This line and this line. And we'll be right, we can use the grass on the right hand side. So that hooping will be hooping 3. This is a long hooping. It's 11.44 by 4.73. So this uses up almost all of the 12-inch hoop. There's 4 mountains, 1 cloud, 2 trees. Okay. So now I'm going to go stitch out I'm going to hoop my stabilizer, and I'm going to stitch out the placement line, and then we will line this up. This basting line is just a little bit off, okay? It doesn't make any difference. It's like a 1/16 of an inch between hooping 2 and hooping 3. Everything else is great. Everything will be covered. Don't worry about it. I'm going to now finish all the embroidery for hooping number 3. Then again, I will come show you, I'll pull it out, and then we will get everything lined up for hooping number 4. All right, I've finished hooping 3. We're going to tear away this stabilizer. I'm going to re-hoop another piece of stabilizer, and I'm going to show you how to line up hooping 4. Okay, I pulled up design 4 on my embroidery machine, and I looked at the picture, and I'm sure most of you have. You can see what is on you can see your design. I had to rotate this one. I don't know. I saved them all the same exact way. This one had me rotated. When I rotated it, I made sure clouds are on the left and the trees are on the bottom. Okay, that's how we've done all the other hoopings. So make sure that is the way that you're doing it. This is hooping 4. We've got 2 trees, 1 cloud, and 2 mountains. Now, I've stitched out my placement line for my fabric. Okay, we're going to move this up. So, let's see. This is the line that we used for the last hooping. Now, you might want to take a blue pen and mark it so you see exactly how it hits the grass. All right, we'll move that up. And that is going to line up with this corner. So we're going to put a pin in here. Easier said than done because I have all those layers of fabric. We're going to put a pin in there. We're going to come over here. And we're going to line that up. I now have all this fabric, so it kind of came out. Okay. All right, we're going to straighten that out. Now we're going to put a pin in the bottom right-hand corner. where that line hits. We're going to look underneath. We're going to make sure it's right there in the bottom right hand corner. So you can see it kind of moves. We don't want it to move. All right, that looks good. Kind of going in a different order. We're going to come up here about 1.5 inches. We're going to look underneath, and that's spot on. This fabric is a little bit heavier now because of the, we're going to come over here about one, because of all the applique. We're going to come over here and look. We're going to go straight down over there. And then we're going to do one more to make sure it's right on the grass. And it is right there. Okay. Spray a little bit of 505. Spray a little 505. Do a little bit up here. Okay, now we're ready to go stitch out that basting line. I will come back and show you how that looks, and then I will do the embroidery for hooping 4. Okay? Okay, I've stitched out this basting line. I must admit, I'm going to tell you, I had to take it out the first time because you could see a little bit, the basting line was a little bit, and you could literally already see the blue. So I ripped it out, and I started over again, and now the basting line is just fine. So it happens to everybody. It's best to take the time and get it as straight as you can the first time because you're going to be much happier with your result. I'm going to take it over to the machine now and do all the embroidery for hooping 4. Okay, here's hooping 4. We've got 2 more hoopings. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to take the stabilizer off the back. I'm going to re-hoop a piece of stabilizer, and I'm going to bring up the design on my embroidery machine and stitch out the placement line. Here is the placement line for hooping 5. Here is the stitch out for hooping 5. Okay, again, clouds to the left, trees to the right. What I ended up doing is I used a couple clips because this was getting too heavy. So I put a couple clips in here. I can actually clip this a little bit more. What I haven't mentioned is you have to be very careful with your stabilizer, your hoop. You're taking it in and out and in and out. I have a tightener that I got with mine. I use a Babylux Solaris. This is my 8x12 hoop, and I have to be very careful that the top doesn't pop out. So just bear in mind when you're taking it back and forth, do it slowly. There's no prizes for getting it done as fast as you can. Be careful because you're going to get a much better result. Okay, so here's my upper right hand corner. I'm going to put this up here. Again, I've got this line here that it goes through the mountains. So I'm going to draw it. I don't necessarily have to. I'm just saying it because I actually have that little bit down here. So we can see it down here. That's where I'm going to put my pin. So let's see. Ouch. Should probably put my iron away so I don't. So we're going to put a pin in here, and we're going to put a pin in here. Yeah. I've been playing around with my cameras, and I just don't want to get my head under the camera, so I'm trying to sit down and do this, which has its own challenges. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to put a pin in here. And then I'm going to look underneath. I kind of move everything around. You see, I don't want those pins to be torquing. All right, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to put a pin right there. And I'm going to look underneath. And it is smack dab in that hole. I'm going to come over here about 1.5 inches. Look underneath. That's a little bit off. I'm going to put the pin in. That's a bit better. I keep moving all this. And I'm not going to be able to get a pin in up there. So I've got all these pins. These all look pretty good. Okay, I'm going to spray that 505. I repeat, take the time, take the time. You're going to get a much better result. All right, I'm going to pull out the pins. I'm going to go over to the machine and I'm going to stitch out that basting line. Okay? All right, I've stitched out the basting line. It is probably the best one out of all these hoopings. It's straight in between the grass and the sky. I'm going to take my hoop back over to my machine and I'm going to do all the embroidery for hooping 5. All right, hooping 5 is finished. Again, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to hoop another piece of stabilizer. I'm going to bring up hooping 6 on my machine and I will show you how to hoop number 6, hooping 6. All right, I've stitched out the placement line for hooping 6. Here will be hooping 6. This is a stitch out. The tree to the right, the cloud to the left. Take our fabric. We're going to put it here. We're going to take this where the line meets the grass, and we're going to put it right there in the top right hand corner. We're going to go straight down here and we'll do the same thing to the bottom where the line meets the grass. Go straight into there. Okay. I'm going to do one here. Look underneath. I wish they made a light table that was squishy, that you could do this on a light table, because you could get even more accurate. All right, and you're going to come up here about a little bit, 1.5 inches, and that is spot on. So, I'm going to spray a little 505. I'm going to put some up here. Put some underneath here. Okay. I'm not going to come back over. We've been working on these placement lines for 5 hoopings, or the basting line. So I'm going to now make sure that the basting line is right there on that line. If it's a hair under, better than a hair above. Okay, so I'm going to do that and stitch out all of hooping 6, and then I'll come back over. Well, we finished. So here is hooping 6. So we've got, I'm going to unroll it a little bit at a time. It's hooping 5. This is hooping 4. Hooping 3, or well, 2, and hooping 1. So you will follow the same exact instructions for the bottom bar. Again, you will work from the right to the left. Instead of clouds, you will have stars, and you will just have to do, you'll use different colors. Use a dark blue and some purples, but it's really the same exact mountains. Okay, so one is sunrise, the other one is sunset. Well, that is it. That's the top bar for the adventure awaits. You will use the same exact instructions for the bottom bar. That is my multi-hooping method. You use the same method in a little bit different ways for the other blocks, like the kayak, the camper, the owl, just depending on what size hoop you have. This is my third video. I've tried to use different camera angles, so you may have noticed that. I'm getting better. I'm getting better with my speakers and everything. But I think that the market is for these videos, and we're going to just post them on YouTube and hope it helps everyone out. Thank you very much.